All right, perfect. Hello.
Hey.
Hey, how's it going?
All right, 1 second.
It's nice to see you.
Okay.
All right. All right, all right. So, sorry about that. I'm glad you were able to hop on video. I like your background.
Oh, good.
That's really good. All right. Well, you look beautiful as usual.
It's you too. It's all the life bubbling forth from our every pore.
That's right. It's not all the plastic surgery. I'm just kidding. I don't have it.
It might be for some, but not for us.
I realize when you joke about that like it could actually just be real and like people wouldn't necessarily get the joke, you know?
They might not, or they might actually have had some.
Exactly. And then it's just an insult to them. So
yeah. Don't worry, I'm a natural girl.
I had a feeling. Mm-hmm. All right. So let me just go ahead and start the formal introduction and everything. So 1 second here. All right, welcome everyone. This is Summer Bach, and you are watching Guts and Glory. So today I'm really excited. I have one of my favorite people. This is Hannah Crum. Hello, Hannah.
Hey.
Welcome. So Hannah is, well, one reason we have her on the show, I'm just going to go ahead and basically show you the big book of kombucha. I'm really excited about this. We're going to chat about this a lot today. And if you don't know who Hannah is she's the Kombucha Camp's main force, along with Alex. What's Alex's last name?
Alex Ligori.
Alex Ligori. And so she and Alex, they work together on this book as well. And Kombucha Camp's mission is really to change the world one gut at a time by educating and empowering everyone to ferment food and drink safely at home, just as we have throughout human history. Research continues to prove that all living things are truly just bacteria powered, and humans need all the good bacteria we can get, especially in this day and age. Hannah Crum is also known as the Kombucha Mama, and she's been brewing kombucha since 2004 and educating others about how easy it is to make this delicious and healthy longevity elixir. This really began as a love of lip-puckering brew. This enjoyable process has evolved into her passion and her lifestyle. So in addition to teaching, she installs large-scale kombucha setups and is the master brewer for numerous restaurants and shops in the LA area, as well as consult for many kombucha brands, from those just starting out to established breweries looking to scale up. So welcome to Guts and Glory.
Thanks for having me. The one thing that wasn't mentioned that I'll just point out is I'm also president and co-founder of Kombucha Brewers International. Alex and I started that nonprofit trade association to support the bottled beverage industry. I first discovered kombucha by buying it at the store. How about you, Summer? Where did you have your first taste?
That is a good question. I actually think I had my first taste of kombucha at a friend's house.
And I first saw it at a friend's house, but we didn't try it. It was just these jars covered with claws, and I go, that's a kombucha. It's like, I don't even know what that is, but came back to LA. They had it all over the Whole Foods, and it was love at first sip for me. It just, you know, when you try something, and this often happens with fermented foods, when like every nerve in your body just electrifies all of a sudden, you're like, ooh. That's how it felt for me when I had my first sip, and I was like, ooh, I'm in. This is awesome.
That is so cool. Yeah, I mean, I remember that was a time when I was, starting to make sauerkraut, and so that's how it came up in conversation. Like, oh yeah, I ferment, and I'm like, okay, I think I've heard of this kombucha business. But, I was a little nervous. I was definitely nervous on our first interaction. But I was
I have to say, sauerkraut was not on my list of foods that I was into growing up. It like smelled weird, like old feet. And I was like, no. And I never thought I'd be into it. I got into kombucha, and of course my chemistry changed and my palate changed, and I love sauerkraut. I don't know, have you seen the Farmhouse Culture's gut shots where they just put the juice in the bottle?
Yes.
You used to do that. I remember doing shots over here with you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Shots of brine. It's one of my favorite things. Yeah. I mean, so tell us, like, here's my big question. Is it mama? Is it baby? Are they kombucha mamas? Are they kombucha babies? Like, how can they be a mother and a baby at the same time?
Well, how are we at multiplicitous in all of our beingness? It starts as a baby and very quickly graduates to mama once we move that little mothership from the one batch to the next. And it's, when selecting which culture to use, we always recommend what looks the healthiest, what feels the firmest. So it's not always automatically going on autopilot. As you know, Summer, whenever we're fermenting, it's really on taste, it's what we're observing. It's a very interactive process. It's not just, I follow the recipe, here's the result. Because there's so many factors that can influence that end product, we really need to have that relationship, that engagement with it.
Right. Absolutely. Well, okay. So I have so many questions. I know we have such a short amount of time together compared to how long I want to talk to you. And I mean, obviously, like, you wrote this all in a book. So if anybody really wants to take the time, I recommend this book highly, highly. I got it in the mail. I devoured it very quickly. The pictures are gorgeous, first and foremost. I mean, it's just always nice to flip through a book and get an idea of what's in here just by looking at the visuals. I mean, it's a stunning, stunning piece of art.
Thank you. Yeah, lots of credit to our photographer, Matt Amenderies, and our food stylist, Marion Cooper Cairns. And then the folks at Story just did a tremendous job with the design. I love the interplay of the watercolor elements, which are kind of evocative of kombucha and its liquid form, the circle shapes and the bubbles, but then really great photographs to contrast that also. I think people are going to really like it. Of course, I love it, but what I thought was really neat was how they portrayed like the different names of the cultures or the different bacteria. There's these really fun motifs in there that are visually entertaining while you're also absorbing all this great information.
Well, I mean, because here's the thing, you've made also a very like scientific book at the same time, and yet it's completely accessible. So it doesn't matter what level a person comes in to read this book, if they're just like a fermentation fanatic or if they're just beginning, like no matter what, they're going to come in here and be able to access the information, get what they need out of it, and not get overwhelmed by the science that you did not hold back on, which is so fun for me. I love that piece of it.
Absolutely. Well, that's what we really wanted to do, was root it in the science. There's plenty of kombucha books out there, and I suppose most of us who are huge kombucha fans remember Günter Frank's book from '95. That was kind of the first time we saw allusion to or references to the vast body of research that has been conducted on kombucha. And, one of the knocks on the American websites, and really part of why I started Kombucha Camp as a blog, was to provide accurate information about kombucha. It was frustrating for me to read different websites talking about the dangers of kombucha when this so clearly is such a safe, healthy, easy to do process, just like all of the fermentation processes are, that I really needed to dig in and share that more authentic information. And so having that research portion was really vital to the book, and it's part of what sets it apart from some of the other books out there, is we really do give you that deeper slice. But again, it's not taking over the whole book. And so, like you said, even if that's not what you're interested in, you've got the 200 and some odd flavorings with all the pretty paintings there, and lots of technique and how-to. So anyone who's wanting to figure this out or afraid to take that first step, we really break it down so that you have access to the information and it feels really easy to absorb.
That's awesome. I mean, I think I do have to say, so I want to be totally transparent too. Like, I work with people who suffer from gut issues, dysbiosis, candida, and I work with people who I recommend to not drink kombucha just based on their health conditions. And, for my own self, like I had a client recently, and I love this. And I'm just going to say it's the coolest thing ever, because I don't really drink alcohol, and I'm really trying to push to get the bars in my area that serve beer to serve kombucha on tap. Yes. And she called it, a little shout out to Gail, she called it the designated driver's drink.
Absolutely. And that is one of the education points that we're working on with KBI this year, is to create a brochure so that bars understand you're not giving up a beer tap to something that's not going to sell or not going to have real value to it. If anything, you're broadening the opportunity for your clients to come and enjoy even more their experience at the bar. Because when you give someone either that, like you said, designated driver option, it's fun, it's not a same old soda, it's not full of sugar, it has unique flavor profiles. Moreover, it's a terrific cocktail mixer. One of kombucha's really helpful benefits to the human body is it makes that gluconic and glucuronic acid. These acids support healthy liver function. And when we remember that the liver's our filter, so that's where, alcohol, pharmaceuticals, everything that we're absorbing that our body needs to process and prevent from entering our bloodstream, that's going through the liver first. And so if you're consuming a beverage that supports the liver and keeps it clean and running smoothly as it should, you not only feel a lot better, but you're able to metabolize that alcohol, metabolize those xenobiotics, metabolize those things so much easier. And when you have think about it like this, when you have a clean filter, of course, the system's going to run better.
Absolutely. Well, and what's interesting to me about kombucha is that, there are a few studies, like not a few studies, there's these like 2 stories of people dying. And we're going to put this out there and we're going to slash it down right now. And the crazy thing to me is there's a recent study that just came out that talks about how 11,000 people die per year from liver failure from taking Tylenol. Like, that is out. It is proof there. It's out there, people. That is the truth about Tylenol, acetaminophen, right? Like,
right. Yeah, no,
11,000 people a year die from liver failure from acetaminophen. Okay. Like, just let that sink in. Think about the last time you took Tylenol or acetaminophen without worrying about it, without fearing for your life.
Mm-hmm.
And now think about any of the fear around kombucha, any of that.
Makes no sense.
It makes
it's totally outside. It's like 2 people maybe had an issue with it back in 1995, and therefore we should all be afraid. But this is the pattern of kombucha. It has been around for hundreds, maybe thousands of years, and it's always had these kind of ebbs and flows where there'll be points when it peaks in popularity and then something will come out about it and everyone will freak out and get rid of it. There's a couple of those stories in the book. The one about Stalin is pretty interesting if you're into history. There's also, even here in the US with those, women in 95 or whatever. So kombucha is one of these things that continues, I think, to persist in our consciousness because we really need it. And I feel like part of why it's coming to fruition and manifesting in the form it is right now is because we are at the height of toxic absorption. Our bodies are the canaries in the coal mine. The incidence of autoimmune disease, metabolic disease, just people feel terrible because they're being poisoned by everything. The air, the water, the food, the beauty products, everything is loaded with chemicals. Our bodies are freaking out. And when you only deal with symptoms and never the root cause, you never get to what it is that's actually happening to your body. You think of symptoms as your internal workings way of expressing to the outer self, hey, there's a problem in here. We need to go inside and fix what's happening. But it's not until you're seeing those external manifestations that you can truly, get your head wrapped around it. And what's interesting is so many people live with this illness, live with this pain and suffering on a daily basis, not understanding that it's connected to what they're putting in and on their bodies, not realizing that, these are our friends, these fermented foods, all of them, the kombuchas, the kefirs, the kvases, the krauts. Why do they all start with K? I don't know, but in any case, they all, maybe because they have vitamin K, they help you feel good. And how do you put a price tag on feeling good? How do you quantify feeling good? It's the thing we hear people say time and time again when they drink kombucha, it makes me feel good. And when you consider that the yeast have all the B vitamins in living form, some testing has shown appreciable amounts of B12 in that living form being bioavailable to people in kombucha. And it makes a lot of sense why this is a really great beverage for all kinds of people. It's every amino acid, every essential amino acid. Now, I'm not talking about in massive quantities, but it's also when we remember that too much of anything is toxic. Mm-hmm. Too much is toxic. It's less is more when it comes to almost anything we think of, because I know we imagine we're feeding this giant organism, this big human body, but really what we're feeding are the bacteria. And the bacteria are microscopic. We can't even see them. So we don't need massive quantities of anything. We need high quality, nutrient dense, they trace amounts of quality items is what really your body needs in order to thrive. And, kombucha is not necessarily for every immune system because some people, their gut dysbiosis might be so severe they need a milk kefir. They need a coconut water kefir first in order to repair. But usually once they've done some repair work, kombucha can then be added in at that time. Also, kombucha has, like I said before, with the detox properties for the liver, sometimes your immune system isn't ready to release all of those things back into your system. And so you have to do it gradually. And that's where trusting your gut, listening to your body is so crucial. And I think that's what you and I both do, is we try to teach people biofeedback. If you put something in here, observe how it makes your body feel. Do you have a ha-ha in your throat? Do you have a drippy nose? Do you have, there's many, many ways in which our body will indicate to us, this thing I just consumed is not working for me. And the other is true. This thing I just consumed, I feel great. I've got all this energy. I'm feeling alive again, or I've got movement where I didn't before. Whatever that might be is, it's really listening to your individual body and giving what your individual body needs, as opposed to getting hung up on all the orthorexic rules and this diet and that diet and then what should I eat over here and over there. There are some really interesting infant studies, which you may already know about, where they're allowed to just select any food that they want, right? And they'll gravitate towards one thing on one day, another thing on another day. But by the end of the week, they've given their bodies everything that they need. And did anyone tell them what they had to eat? No, because your DNA knows. Your DNA has so much information encoded into it. If you just listen to it, if you just listen and allow that information to resonate in your being, you will find the inputs that work for you. And so, you might be vegetarian most of the time, but every once in a while your body says, hey, I need a steak, or whatever that is. And it doesn't mean that you're violating your principles. It just means you're giving your body what it needs in the quantities that it needs. So again, it's not that all or nothing type of thing. We live in the subtleties as much as our culture tries to tell us otherwise.
Yeah, well, so I have a niece who's almost 2 years old. So I see this study in practice every day because one day you're like, oh, you loved that yesterday. And she's like, nothing to do with it the next day. It is pretty amazing. It's really cool. And that is something that I teach in my gut rebuilding program, is that whole concept of intuitive eating, because it's hugely important. And if you don't have the right bacteria in your body, then you're actually listening to potentially dysbiotic bacteria and potentially yeasts that are actually telling you to eat sugar and processed foods and easy to digest simple carbs, and because that's what they like to eat. So there's this interesting difference between your own physical DNA and your own intuition, and then there's this whole conglomerate of bacteria and their DNA and what they want to eat, and they can communicate through your nervous system and basically tell you what to eat as well. So you have two big voices to listen to. And I find that that's one of the reasons that you really want to try to be healthier and actually get some of these probiotic rich foods in your diet, so that you're choosing which bacteria are going to be communicating to your brain. So you're not a sugar zombie, essentially, is what I think of them as.
Exactly right. And, there's 500 to 1,000 different types of bacteria, and that's just the most recent guess. Who knows what else they're going to figure out or find out. And you're not going to get all of that from one fermented food or one fermented drink. So while it's great to start with one, and we think kombucha is a terrific gateway to other fermented foods, to feeling good, to nutrition in a living form, it's about a variety. So getting a variety and in a living form, I think, is really crucial. Now, there are times when taking probiotic supplements might be beneficial in certain cases, but I truly believe that getting your nutrition in food-based formats is what we evolved to do. We didn't evolve to eat supplements. We evolved to, play in the dirt and get our hands dirty and let those bacteria coat our bodies. We evolved to let the dog lick us on the face, to kiss the baby with the slobber, to even have wet nurses and pass them around from boob to boob and get different immune systems in them. I mean, really what we're here to do is to connect, and it's common immunity, community. It's when we come together, when we, like the SCOBY, throw out our nanofibers of cellulose and connect with each other, that's where, again, strength in numbers, and we're not isolated, and we start to stand up and say, hey, you can't poison me anymore. I'm not going to tolerate this. I'm going to look for a better food source. I want to be an organic farmer. I want to provide organic vegetables for my neighborhood or community or whatever that is. And, that's what changing the world one gut at a time is about. It's not about a specific outcome, but when you are back in balance, when you have that energy, when you're not dealing with being sick every day or worrying about what to eat because is it going to send me to the bathroom or whatever that is, when you have that energy to now reinvigorate your own family, your own community, I am really confident that when people feel good again, they're going to go and do great things to help others feel good.
Oh, that's so true. Okay, so before we move on to some specific questions about, making kombucha and some of your tricks, I do have another like health style question for you, because I one of my big issues in my own healing journey was dealing with like massive candida and dysbiosis. And, like kombucha for me really was like, there was a gateway period where it helped me. It actually helped me a lot in the beginning, kind of like got my digestion up and running and like was really a part of that process in the beginning. But then I reached a point where I really couldn't drink it in any frequency without getting a candida flare up to come back. Personally, that was for me. I found that like no matter how long it sat and fermented, until it was like pretty much vinegar, I was having it was too much sugar, and I'm a slow caffeine metabolizer, and I just really can't handle the caffeine either. It like boosts up my cortisol levels essentially, and I can't sleep. Like it's bad. So it doesn't work for me at this point. It did at one time, and I would, if they had it at the bars, I would absolutely be the person being like, all right, give me a pint of that kombucha tonight, because that would be fun to hang out with my friends and like have my own special drink, and that would be, it wouldn't be all the time, and for me, that's how I'd rather use it in that style personally. And so I guess my question for you, because I work with so many fermentationists in training, and fermentationists who do enjoy kombucha. And there's this discrepancy where I talk about my personal experience and I talk about the clients that I deal with candida and various other things who, when we remove it, it is better. But then we have this whole conglomerate of people out there who are benefiting from this on a regular basis. And I don't want to take away from that side of it. And so I just really wanted you to, if you could just speak for a minute about kind of, I'm going to throw like 3 points at you here, but kind of the concept around this being a health food, like the probiotic quality of it, and talk about the sugar as well, and like how you see this fitting into somebody's diet and working. Like I want my people who love their kombucha and drink it to like have that moment.
Totally. And, again, that's coming back to trusting your gut. Many people have had candida overgrowth. They drink kombucha and it really helps them get rid of it. But oftentimes you have to go through a die-off period, and that can feel like, oh, well, the kombucha is causing it then, as opposed to if I stick through this, I know I'm going to get out on the other side. It's just, you're literally beating them back into submission, and they're like, no, I don't want to go. And so they're freaking out. And so your body's like, it can definitely create a lot of problems. There are known candidicides in kombucha, but like you said, we do need to ferment the sugar out of it, because here's the issue. If you're drinking a commercial kombucha, they're not also vinegary, right? Kombucha is essentially tea vinegar. But for most people, the concept of drinking vinegar would be like, oh, there's no way I would do that. And so in order to kind of bridge people into the category, many brands have chosen to be a lighter profile, to maybe have a sweeter flavor than you might get in a really traditional fermented kombucha. And so that sometimes can create an issue, because there might be more sugar present in those flavors. And so again, it's listening to your body and how's it reacting. I can't tell any one person what die-off feels like. I can't tell any one person how long that's going to take or what you have to go through to get to that other side. And that's why sometimes reverting back to those coconut water keepers, kombucha has caprylic acid, but coconut water keeper has a lot more. And in terms of organisms and diversity and probiotic, the definition of probiotic, if we take it just in what the base words mean, probiotic, for life, kombucha is definitely probiotic. Does it have the same number and quantity of bacteria or organisms as other beverages? Not necessarily. But that's, again, why we emphasize a variety of fermented foods, because you're going to get the full panoply then of the different types. Kombucha is an acetic acid ferment, so you've got your glucon acetobacters. It's not really a lacto ferment, and the lactobacillus are also important. So whether we're getting those from our sauerkraut or our yogurts, that's why you have those variety there. But in terms of so candida and diabetes are both sugar sensitive, cancer as well. And kombucha has a lot of research and history. If you go to the book, into that back section, the appendix, you'll see some of those research studies demonstrating its efficacy in helping with those specific things. And that's because it's able to just metabolize and get the junk out. But you do have to listen to your body. You do have to realize it might not be right for me right now, but it's going to be right for me later. And it's finding that balance between everything. And like you said, it's that idea of balance. You know, if we're always drinking one thing all the time, at some point that might be out of balance, and it can be good to take breaks. I myself have an ebb and flow with my kombucha. I like to drink it, but I don't drink it every day.
You like to drink how much every day?
Well, some days I have none, and some days I have 8 ounces, and some days I have 32 ounces. So it just really varies depending on where am I, what's going on, what's happening. Always on the road when I travel. I love to buy kombucha wherever I go. First of all, whenever you're traveling, you're exposed to so many foreign organisms. And secondarily, I love to taste the local flavors because it really is a craft product. You know, it's not like a soda where you're expecting the same flavor again and again. Each brand has their own style of brewing it, their own way of flavoring it. And so just like you have 10 Hefeweizens or 20 Pinot Noirs or whatever all on a shelf next to each other, and they're all there at different price points, you know, that's what kombucha is. It is this craft unique beverage. And I think that gives people a huge opportunity to try all different kinds. So like maybe you'll try a kombucha and you'll be like, I don't like that. Well, try a different flavor, try a different brand. There's probably a kombucha out there that fits your needs, your flavor profile, and your desire. But if you are dealing with those more intense issues, making it at home sometimes is better. Or even if you buy store-bought, let it sit, let it get more tangy in the bottle as opposed to being fresh and sweet from the store. So those are some ways you can work with it. But really, it's so individual, Summer. It's, you know, it's really, there are kombucha files. There are people who are, you know, self-proclaimed kombuchaholics or whatever, which I don't think they're addicted to anything. It's more their body feels good. They get a nutritional benefit. And where's that nutrition coming from? The tea. If we look at tea, tea is already such an incredibly healthy beverage. The polyphenols, the antioxidants, the calcium, the magnesium, all of these nutrients are made more bioavailable, easier for your body to absorb in a form that you can instantly utilize and catalyze all of those reactions. And, you know, it's really listening is, it all comes back to that. You just got to listen.
So I had my friends at Harvest Roots, they came over just the other day after the farmer's market, and they make amazing krauts and they make these incredible kombucha blends. And the one they brought over was elderberry lemongrass. What? So, I mean, it's really cool what you can do in terms of flavoring kombuchas and like coming up with using even like some medicinal qualities from other herbs as well to combine with the tea benefits. Tell me some of your favorite recipes or favorite blends that you've tried.
Well, what I'm drinking right now, and what you probably see me sipping, is elderflower lemon. So I just, you know, plants and herbs have been here to support us the whole time. And humans evolved this strategy where they'll eat a little bit of a lot of things. And again, it's that concept of if I eat too much of just one thing, that might be toxic for me. So looking to nature, looking to those flowers and plants. Your garden is a great place for inspiration. That's where I made some of my earliest flavors, Garden Dew, which was rosemary, lavender, thyme, oregano, just things I found in my garden and put into my kombucha. And think about it like this. Kombucha, like I said, tea vinegar extracts nutritional value into it. It's a carrier. It's the catalyst for those things. So whenever you're infusing herbs, flowers, or whatever into your kombucha, those nutritional benefits are passed on to you. And that's also why when you put those elderberries in there, you get that beautiful purple color. All that anthocyanin, all of those nutritional components are being passed on to the beverage. And, you know, so some of my other favorite, the flavor that got Alex hooked, which, you know, he thought I was a total weirdo making this stuff at home when I was not a cook at all, definitely standard American diet back then, was pink lemonade. So that's a strawberry lemon thyme. And yes, it remains one of our most popular flavors. And then one of my favorites, and I called it Love Potion 99 because I love to drink it, is blueberry lavender rose. And a lot of these recipes are in the book, but like you said, we've got bacon recipes, we got mushroom recipes, we got all kinds. You can get so creative with this stuff. It's fascinating.
Banana ketchup?
Yeah, right?
I have not tried said recipe. But
yeah, it was so fun researching the recipes for this book because, obviously we wanted to make things that were fun and accessible for people, things they already enjoy, but then some little twists. So that banana ketchup, it was really a food of necessity in terms of how it came into being. During World War II, tomatoes were scarce in the Philippines, and so this wonderful food scientist figured out a way to make ketchup so people could feel good about it out of bananas, and it's really good.
I can't wait. That's totally amazing. Okay, and so then just to put it out there, like making kombucha is pretty easy. I want to just give some of the more advanced people who have been doing kombucha for a while, I want to give them an opportunity to get some tips from you right now. And there's two big questions that I get on a regular basis about kombucha, and one is second ferment. Can you talk a little bit about what second ferment is and some of your favorite additions to the second ferment?
Well, that's what we've just been talking about. So flavoring is secondary fermentation. We always do our primary fermentation with just the tea and sugar because we want to protect the mother culture. Some herbs have high amounts of essential oils. They might be antimicrobial, which to me is always like, okay, anti-which microbial? But in any case, to protect the culture, we keep those things separate. And so secondary fermentation is also where we build the carbonation. And in order to do that, we need some of the yeast bodies present. Folks are doing to just stir it first before it pours out of the spigot in order to get some of that yeast in the bottle. So once the yeast is in the bottle, you add that little bit of flavoring nutrition for the yeast, the ginger, the fruit, whatever it is, and that drives the carbonation up again. Now, because it's capped in that bottle, we get our bubbles in there. And, bubbles are a primal signal. They're a signal that nutrition is present, because how did ancient people know that microbes were doing their work? First of all, they had no clue there were microbes. They had to look for the bubbles, and the bubbles look like the same bubbles you see in a boiling pot of water. So what's so neat is that root word for ferment is fervere, which means to boil, because it was always by witnessing the bubbles that people knew something was happening, something good was happening. And so that's unfortunately the bait and switch of sodas. We call those simulacrum. They are mimicking, they are imitating all of the qualities of these beverages that we instinctually know are good for us, but then replacing them with things that are addictive chemicals, that are cancer causing potentially, that really offer no nutritional benefit, and worse, they often rob your body of needed nutrients. And I really think we're going to see not just kombucha, not just kefir, but all kinds of traditional fermented beverages continue to bubble up in a commercial way. And I'm really excited about that. We're even seeing, people combining kombucha and kefir. Kefir has a softer flavor, a little bit milder, can temper the tanginess of the booch. And now you've got, a plus, even more probiotics in there. So I think we're going to see a lot of really fun, creative stuff. And same with the cocktails. I know we have a prohibition hangover in this country, but alcohol is a vital nutrient. And again, it's when we consume it in the right quantity at the right time. Now, I'm not saying everyone should go out there and drink alcohol. You have to, again, listen to your body and do what's right for you. But I think if we start to put it back into its appropriate cultural position, we can enjoy it in a healthier way, in a way that supports life, as opposed to becomes a negative drag on the body. It's an invaluable preservative. And when we think about the root cause of disease being diet and stress, we all know having that first couple of sips, it all melts away. So those trace amounts of alcohol not only help to carry nutrition, they also help to relax the organism. And in kombucha, it's metabolized so quickly, there's not a negative effect. Now, some people who are really sensitive to these things, they might feel something, but a lot of people also, report those same feelings of euphoria from getting a B vitamin shot. So is it nutrition in a living form that you're just not accustomed to experiencing versus inebriation? I think that's the case more often than not. But again, there's people allergic to peanuts, there's people allergic to anything in the world. So, it's always, again, that communication with yourself.
Well, and so one of my fermentationists, Raya, she has this question because she keeps making kombucha, and she had it tested actually, and it keeps coming back with really high alcohol content. And I saw you have some good tips in the book. I was wondering if you could share with me a couple tips. I can tell you she does 2.5 gallons of tea with 1 3/4 cups of sugar. And
Okay.
I'm just curious if you have any tips. That didn't seem over the top crazy to me in terms of sugar content. So maybe there's something else.
Yeah, it's not. It sounds like the initial sugar being reduced to that level should yield lower amounts of alcohol. That is true. But again, what's creating the alcohol is the yeast. It's always the yeast. Now, what limits the alcohol in kombucha is the bacteria. So there's a couple of different techniques. One, of course, is filtering out the yeast. But remember, when you filter out the yeast, you filter out that nutrition. I mean, there's still some in there, but you're filtering out some of that, and also flavor. Like when you go and look at beer and wine have been studied for hundreds of years, so much research, and more often than not, you're tying specific yeast strains to different flavors that come through. So remembering that that's going to be part of what you're compromising in that process. But it is still very possible to make an under 0.5% kombucha that tastes delicious and doesn't lack its body. But filtering the yeast is an important thing to do if you need to minimize that. Also, letting it age longer in the bottle, which is hard if you're trying to do it commercially, because then you have to hold product, you have to have storage for that, you have to, come back and check on it, this, that, and the other. So I think we will eventually see folks evolve into these different styles of fermenting kombucha in that way.
Yeah, nuanced.
But it's also, the interesting thing about that 0.5% is it's a number not tied to anything, right? It's not, it's either alcoholic or not. So at that point, it should be 0.00001, right? It's alcoholic. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that doesn't make any sense. Fruit juice has trace amounts of alcohol. Sodas, energy drinks,
right. Fruit itself, like a fruit itself, exactly. Banana. Yeah. Well, yeah. So how she ages at 7 to 9 days? What would you recommend?
Yeah, that's not long enough.
So how long would you go?
For 2.5 gallons, I would say 10 to 14 days would be a good amount to start with. But again, you're dealing with taste preference, so it depends on what you're trying to do. Sometimes mixing older kombucha with younger kombucha, because the older stuff has less alcohol, it's a little tangier, but you're still tempering the flavor. That's kind of what we get in a continuous brew. So that's our favorite way to make kombucha, because it's just so easy. It streamlines the whole process. Everything goes into your vessel, it comes out your spigot. You just, keep with that process. And there has been some initial research showing that it may help spike the levels of glucuronic acid with that reintroduction of sugar at that point in the process. It offers additional glucose to those organisms creating the glucuronic acid. But again, that's just an initial study. It's always about you balancing these things. I try not to get too hung up on the, does it have this one strain? Does it have this amount of this vitamin or whatever? Because it's really that intuitive eating, that trusting your gut. Your body knows what it needs, and we don't need a number in order to quantify that. That only gets our brains confused a lot of times and focused on the wrong things. And so again, it's diversity, just like nature. Nature loves diversity. You walk out your door, what do you see? You don't just see only grass. You see the birds and the bees and trees and flowers and different types of grass, so nature loves diversity. It loves diversity of ideas. It loves diversity of opinions. It loves diversity of colors and freckles and all kinds of things. And if we embrace that diversity and realize that just because it's different doesn't mean it's bad or anything, I think we find there's room for everybody, for all kinds of organisms to thrive together.
High five for that. All right. Well, we could keep jamming on this stuff forever. But just for everybody, remember, this is called The Big Book of Kombucha. It really is the encyclopedia of kombucha, as far as I'm concerned. This is where you need to go to get your answers and ideas, and really a lot of troubleshooting. You want to keep it safe. Read this. And then you also have a tour going on. So if you're watching this in time for the national tour of the Big Book of Kombucha, there's some great tour dates out there. So you could probably go on to kombuchacamp.com to get to that. That
is correct. Kombuchacamp.com. We have a free recipe there. If you're new to kombucha, you can download that. You can also click on to find our tour dates. We'll be doing all different kinds of fun events. Some are cocktail parties with tastings, some are book signings in the bookstore, but all of them are going to have kombucha samples, because we have partnered with our friends in the commercial world to make sure everyone has a chance to try some kombuchas while we're talking about it, because there's nothing more fun than, I don't know about you, Summer, but I love talking about food. I like talking about the qualities of it and what did I like and what didn't I like. It's just, I think our minds enjoy those levels of sophistication. Look, we know about single estate shade-grown coffees and, pu'er tea that's been fermented for, you know what I'm saying? Yep. Humans love that kind of information and detail. And so Really excited to share kombucha and our love of kombucha and our kombucha lifestyle philosophy with everyone. So thanks so much for having me on and sharing this with your people.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. And, thanks for, all the hard work that you put into this book. I remember back when you were talking about this quite a while ago, and it's wonderful to see this come to fruition. So thanks for that. And everyone, this is Hannah Crum and Summerbox signing out. Bye-bye. All right. So that's it. I know you have to go, so I'm just going to hop off here and let you get to your thing. I don't want you to be late.
Okay, great. And then when are you posting it today or?
Not today. I'll let you know. I think it's going to be a few weeks. My assistant, I'm going to wait till she gets back, but I believe it's going to be in our April. Or we'll probably try to do it the earliest April newsletter.
Awesome. Sounds great. Thank you.
See you soon.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.